I saw it happen in slow motion. The email was never intended for my inbox. Julian's billing rate to enterprise clients will remain at $300 an hour, but keep him at $12 an hour through Q4. He does not have the leverage to negotiate. Single father, community college background, classic hungry older worker syndrome. He will take whatever we give him. My fingers froze over my mechanical keyboard. My throat tightened as a cold wave of realization washed through my chest. The internal message from Brantley Prescott, Senior Vice President of Engineering at Apex Solutions, had been accidentally copied to the entire senior developer distribution list. For 3 breathless seconds, absolute silence blanketed the open bullpen. Then came the frantic Outlook recall notifications popping up on every computer monitor across the room. Seconds after that, Brantley's corner office door slammed shut so violently that the glass partitions vibrated in their metal frames. I did not cry. I did not hurl my coffee mug against the wall. I just sat quietly at my worn desk, staring at the 26 lines of back-end microservice code blurring before my eyes, while something rigid, focused, and indestructible solidified deep within my spirit. My name is Julian Vance. I was 54 years old and had spent the previous 9 months single-handedly architecturalizing and rebuilding Apex Solutions' flagship enterprise data ingestion engine from scratch, living on leftover sandwiches, cheap oatmeal, and cold instant coffee. Before I continue with this story, if you are reading this account, please drop a brief comment sharing where you are tuning in from today, and hit that subscribe button. This channel has served as my primary sanctuary space. Everything unfolded. Since everything unfolded, I had accepted the employment position at Apex with deep technical expertise, substantial university debt incurred from mid-career technical retrainings, and heavy personal responsibilities. My 14-year-old son, Toby, was coping with a chronic autoimmune condition that required non-negotiable health insurance coverage and specialized biological infusion therapies costing $1,800 every single month. My former spouse had departed 5 years earlier, leaving behind unpaid promissory obligations and sporadic child assistance payments that arrived unpredictably, if at all. When I initially interviewed at Apex Solutions, Brantley Prescott had reclined in his imported Italian leather armchair, an extravagant piece of furniture that cost more than my pre-owned Japanese sedan, telling me that Apex was taking a calculated corporate risk on a self-taught veteran programmer. He claimed my back-end architectural concepts were promising, but lacked modern enterprise polish and corporate alignment. He offered $12 an hour as a junior system developer, promising a comprehensive performance and wage review within 6 months. We operate as a dedicated family here at Apex, he told me while proudly gesturing toward framed photographs of executive company retreats that I would later discover were strictly reserved for corporate vice presidents and major shareholders. We invest in individuals who demonstrate unconditional loyalty and dedication to our vision. I chose to believe his persuasive words because my family desperately needed the financial stability, because Toby's prescription invoice was due within days, and because our residential landlord had just increased our monthly lease payment by 15%. On my very first morning, Human Resources assigned me to a shadowy corner desk with a trembling table leg adjacent to the second-floor restrooms, where the plumbing hissed continuously throughout the day. My assigned workstation consisted of a 7-year-old reconditioned desktop tower that required 14 minutes just to execute a clean system boot sequence. My onboarding process consisted of being handed 3 dust-covered boxes of outdated legacy software documentation and being instructed to decipher the architectural mess independently. Yet, against all corporate expectations, I succeeded beyond measure. I stayed late every single evening, systematically analyzing Apex's unstable, fragmented codebase. I refactored critical database modules that senior engineers refused to touch out of fear of breaking production systems. I streamlined query pathways so archaic that the original software engineers had long since retired. Within 90 days, major enterprise clients were explicitly requesting my direct involvement on their mission-critical deployments. You possess an extraordinary talent for rendering complex distributed data systems understandable, corporate technology officers would tell me, No engineer at Apex has ever resolved our data throughput bottlenecks so efficiently. I possessed no knowledge at the time that Apex was quietly billing enterprise accounts, $300 an hour for my specialized engineering labor. I was still earning $12 an hour, meticulously calculating every single penny at the grocery checkout counter. The promised 6-month compensation review never materialized. When I finally gathered the resolve to request a brief audience in Brantley's corner office, he appeared visibly annoyed, as though I had trespassed on sacred executive time. "We are navigating severe budgetary constraints across all engineering divisions, Julian," Brantley stated coldly, without bothering to look up from his smartphone screen. "The macroeconomic climate is remarkably volatile right now. Perhaps we can reevaluate your compensation during the next fiscal quarter." Later that same afternoon, I overheard him placing a non-refundable deposit on a 60-foot luxury motor yacht for his upcoming summer vacation, his third extended holiday of that calendar year. Following that infuriating incident, I began eating my homemade lunches inside my parked car. Partly to preserve the $4 I would otherwise spend on cafeteria coffee, and partly because I could no longer stomach watching senior executives order $200 sushi platters for internal management meetings while I carefully budgeted my son's medical prescription co-pays to survive the month. Matters reached a definitive breaking point on a sweltering Tuesday in middle July. The central cooling infrastructure in our commercial building had suffered a major compressor failure, though the temperature control issues mysteriously affected only the developer bullpen on the ground floor. The executive suites on the top floor remained crisp, cool, and perfectly air-conditioned. Sweat soaked through the back of my cotton work shirt as I spent 6 consecutive hours debugging a critical database lock error, racing against a strict deployment deadline that management had neglected to inform me about until 8 that morning. Brantley strolled into our department at 11:30, looking refreshed from an early morning round of golf, stepping past my corner desk as though I were completely invisible. "How is the data integration module progressing for Nexus Global?" he inquired casually, leaning against the divider. "They represent our largest corporate revenue account. We cannot tolerate a single operational failure on this release." "It is nearly ready for deployment," I responded quietly, refraining from mentioning that I had been at my keyboard since 5 in the morning without a single break. "I am currently finalizing the enterprise transaction validation protocols." "Excellent," Brantley noted, adjusting the band of his platinum wristwatch, a newly acquired luxury timepiece distinct from the gold chronograph he had worn the previous week. "Nexus Global is paying premium rush rates for this immediate implementation, so ensure absolute flawless execution." Something deep inside me prompted a direct question. "What exactly is Nexus Global paying per hour for rush architectural development work?" Brantley's eyes narrowed slightly, but he answered with offhand arrogance. $350 an hour, corporate enterprise rate. $350 an hour for my precise mathematical logic, while my take-home compensation remained $12 an hour. That very evening, after ensuring Toby had taken his evening medication and was resting comfortably in our modest 2-bedroom apartment, I powered up my personal computer. It was not an Apex workstation, but my own custom-built desktop assembled from refurbished components purchased at university surplus auctions over several months. I began building. I was not merely typing lines of code. I was designing an enterprise architectural blueprint, sketching relational database schemas, and calculating market scaling metrics like the independent technology founder no executive at Apex believed I could ever become. During my brief lunch breaks at work, I had meticulously studied public industry contracts, analyzed enterprise pricing structures, and documented systemic vulnerabilities within existing market software solutions. Every night from 9 in the evening until 3 in the morning, I constructed my alternative enterprise platform. I named the core system Ethirus, an enterprise data ingestion and real-time analytics platform so intuitive, resilient, and blazing fast that it rendered Apex's legacy software completely obsolete. In all honesty, major segments of Apex's software codebase had not been overhauled in over a decade. I formally incorporated my new technology venture under the corporate name Vortex Systems, and holding the stamped state business registration documents in my hands produced a profound surge of professional dignity I had not experienced in many years. Throughout the daylight hours, I maintained complete emotional composure at Apex. I smiled politely when Brantley complained about operational overhead while showing off his new handmade Italian leather shoes. I nodded respectfully when Human Resources distributed company-wide memorandums announcing the temporary freezing of employee raises due to market headwinds. The exact same week, executive management approved a complete marble renovation of their private executive dining quarters. I worked with even greater diligence on assigned client tasks, because every complex architectural challenge I resolved for Apex provided valuable operational insights that I immediately refined within my own independent platform at night. 3 months into my nighttime engineering project, I invited Dean Drake to join the enterprise as a co-founding partner. Dean was a 48-year-old brilliant principal user interface designer who had been systematically underpaid and overlooked at a neighboring software agency. We convened at my small kitchen table long after our children were asleep, with Dean crafting a magnificent, highly responsive user interface that transformed my powerful back-end engine into a visual masterpiece. "They will never comprehend what hit them," Dean whispered one evening at 2 in the morning, as we validated a successful system benchmark test. "Executive management assumes seasoned professionals like us will forever remain grateful for leftover crumbs." By the 4th month of relentless nightly effort, Aethirus possessed a fully operational production prototype capable of handling millions of concurrent transactions. By month 5, I had successfully secured a competitive commercial technology loan based entirely upon the demonstrated performance metrics of our platform. The senior commercial lending officer at the financial institution remarked that Aethirus represented the most technologically advanced enterprise architecture he had evaluated in over a decade of banking. I allocated a portion of those funds to retain Gordon Barrett, a seasoned intellectual property and employment attorney. Mr. Barrett conducted a rigorous legal review of my original employment agreement with Apex Solutions. His legal findings were decisive and unequivocal. Apex had utilized an outdated, generic employment contract template that completely lacked restrictive non-compete covenants, post-employment client solicitation bans, or enforceable intellectual property assignment clauses regarding work performed during off hours using personal hardware equipment. "You are entirely clear," Mr. Barrett confirmed with a confident smile. "Apex possesses zero legal or proprietary claim over technology you independently engineered outside their facilities without utilizing their intellectual assets or corporate resources." Conditions within the office deteriorated rapidly as autumn approached. Brantley recruited his 22-year-old nephew, Chad Prescott, as a principal software consultant at $85 an hour, despite Chad demonstrating a complete inability to distinguish basic database indexing from memory allocation. Meanwhile, my formal written request for a modest $2 an hour wage adjustment was met with a patronizing lecture from Brantley regarding professional gratitude, corporate loyalty, and economic realities. The decisive turning point arrived during an executive client presentation that I had not originally been scheduled to attend. I was summoned at the final minute when the software demonstration prepared by Chad crashed catastrophically in front of the board of directors from Nexus Global, Apex's most lucrative enterprise account. The chief executive officer of Nexus Global, Valerie Hallowell, was renowned across the technology industry for her sharp intellect, decisive leadership, and zero tolerance for corporate posturing. I stepped up to the main conference display, diagnosed the memory leak in real time, reconfigured the microservice endpoints, and restored full system functionality within 4 minutes while calmly explaining the underlying data flows to the board. When the demonstration concluded, Miss Hallowell turned her sharp gaze away from Brantley and stared directly at me. "Who engineered this back-end architecture?" she inquired crisply. Brantley attempted a dismissive chuckle. "Oh, Julian is simply one of our junior support technicians," he remarked smoothly, stepping forward to block her view. He assists with routine system maintenance and minor bug fixes. Ms. Hallowell did not break eye contact with me. Did you build this entire core engine? She asked directly. Before Brantley could intervene, I answered clearly and confidently. Yes, I architected the core engine, along with the previous 3 enterprise data updates. Ms. Hallowell handed me her personal business card, featuring her private direct phone line. Contact my office tomorrow morning, she stated quietly. We have significant enterprise matters to discuss. Brantley's facial expression turned dark as he escorted her toward the executive elevators, laughing unnaturally at her brief remarks while she glanced back at me with keen interest. That evening, after Toby had completed his homework and was sound asleep, I dialed the direct number. I spent 90 minutes watching you resolve a critical architectural failure under intense pressure. Ms. Hallowell began without corporate preamble. That performance demonstrated greater technical mastery than any executive pitch deck I have evaluated this year. What is your precise situation at Apex, Julian? I provided a candid and objective summary of my tenure. I refrained from disclosing the existence of Aetheris at that specific moment, but I outlined my engineering background, my technical discipline, my family responsibilities, and my passion for building elegant software solutions. What is Apex currently compensating you? She asked plainly. I hesitated for a brief moment, then stated the exact figure. The resulting silence across the line was so prolonged, I questioned whether the phone connection had dropped. $12 an hour, she repeated softly, her tone laced with genuine disbelief. And they bill our corporation $300 an hour for your direct work. I see. 48 hours later, Brantley summoned me into his corner office. His face was flushed with an emotion I initially interpreted as anger, but soon recognized as mounting panic. Nexus Global has expressed serious reservation regarding their upcoming contract renewal, he noted stiffly. Ms. Hallowell has explicitly stipulated that you must serve as their exclusive lead technical architect going forward. He delivered the news as though it were a severe disciplinary breach on my part. I understand, I replied evenly. What information did you disclose to the client? He demanded aggressively, leaning across his mahogany desk. Nothing beyond technical system specifications, I answered truthfully. She had simply deduced the operational reality independently. For the subsequent 3 weeks, I engaged in direct technical consultations with Nexus Global's executive team, attending high-level architecture sessions from which Brantley was pointedly excluded by client request. Ms. Hallowell and her senior directors respected my engineering judgment, implemented my structural recommendations, and treated me with genuine professional dignity. Simultaneously, Aetheris reached total production readiness. Dean and I had engineered a truly revolutionary platform that accomplished every task Apex promised, but executed data operations 40 times faster with military-grade encryption protocols and through an interface so seamless that initial enterprise beta testers described it as transformative. I secured a modest commercial office space above a local technology incubator, hired 2 exceptionally talented senior developers who had been recently laid off by competing firms, and established our operational base. Then arrived the day I had meticulously planned for months. The morning I submitted my formal 2-week resignation notice at Apex. I printed the document on standard white bond paper, maintaining absolute professional neutrality. Brantley was conducting a casual phone conversation when I knocked on his open door frame. He raised one finger, forcing me to wait while he finalized reservations for a weekend golf resort where a single night's lodging exceeded my weekly paycheck. Eventually, he set his phone down. What is it, Julian? I am tendering my 2-week notice of resignation, I stated, placing the white document cleanly on his mahogany desk. Brantley did not inspect the paper. Instead, he reclined in his leather chair, examining me with condescending amusement. Let me guess, he sneered with a sarcastic shake of his head. Nexus Global made you a modest employment offer. Typical corporate poaching tactics. Look, Julian, we might be capable of stretching our department budget to offer you $14 an hour, but you must remain realistic about individuals with your non-traditional background. I am not accepting employment at Nexus Global, I interrupted calmly. That statement immediately arrested his attention. Then where do you imagine you are going? he demanded, his brows furrowing. I have launched my own enterprise software corporation, I replied quietly. Brantley burst into loud, unrestrained laughter. He threw his head back, chuckling as though I had delivered a comedic performance. Your own company? He laughed. Julian, be reasonable. Do you possess any comprehension of the immense capital requirements necessary to operate an enterprise software firm? The cloud infrastructure costs alone would swamp you in less than a month. I have secured independent commercial financing and institutional backing, I stated evenly. My final day of service will be the 15th. I am fully prepared to document my system architectures and train designated engineering personnel during the transition period. Silence descended upon his office as he calculated the financial fallout. Look, everyone experiences workplace frustration. Occasionally, Brantley offered, altering his tone to fake empathy and concern. Why not take 3 days of paid leave to reconsider your position? Launching a technology venture is brutally difficult, especially for an older single parent lacking substantial financial safety nets. The condescension in his voice was palpable, but I maintained complete emotional composure. My decision is irrevocable, I replied. As I turned toward the doorway, his voice sharpened into a direct threat. What exactly is this new company of yours going to manufacture? I paused at the threshold, met his gaze steadily, and answered softly. You will observe the results shortly. That afternoon, Brantley convened an emergency executive session with senior management. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I observed him gesturing wildly, pointing repeatedly in the direction of my corner desk. My fellow developers offered questioning glances, but I continued writing clean back-end code as if nothing unusual had transpired. Over the following days, the office environment grew increasingly hostile and tense. Brantley assigned his nephew Chad to shadow my daily tasks, explicitly attempting to extract every piece of architectural knowledge prior to my departure. Chad spent the majority of his time browsing social media on his phone, occasionally asking elementary questions that underscored his profound ignorance of back-end engineering concepts. 1 week into my notice period, I received a secure text message from Valerie Hallowell. Join me for lunch at my private office tomorrow. Critical strategic matters to review before your departure. The next morning, I requested 2 hours of personal time for a routine medical consultation. Brantley expressed deep skepticism, but could not legally deny the requested time. I traveled to Nexus Global's corporate headquarters, a striking glass tower downtown that made Apex's rented facilities appear completely obsolete. Ms. Hallowell greeted me personally in the main lobby, escorting me to her executive suite overlooking the city skyline. Lunch was prepared on a side conference table. Brantley contacted my office yesterday afternoon, Ms. Hallowell stated without delay. He expressed intense concern that I intended to recruit you directly, warning that such an action would constitute a hostile interference with Apex's business relationships. She paused, taking a slow sip of tea. He then offered to discount our annual contract rate by 20% if we executed a mandatory 3-year renewal immediately. And what was your response? I asked quietly. I informed him that I would evaluate all available market options, she replied with a sharp, decisive smile. But what I truly require today is a comprehensive demonstration of this independent platform you have engineered. He appeared extraordinarily unsettled by your upcoming departure. I opened my laptop and initialized the full production demonstration of Aetherus. For 45 minutes, I guided Ms. Hallowell through our real-time data ingestion pipelines, automated compliance validation modules, distributed query acceleration, and intuitive management dashboards. I demonstrated how Aetherus eliminated the precise system crashes and data latency that had plagued Apex's legacy software for years. When I concluded, Ms. Hallowell remained silent for several moments, inspecting the live benchmark metrics on the display. Then she asked a single question. How rapidly can Vortex Systems deploy Aetherus across Nexus Global's international operations? My heart beat steadily with profound focus and pride. 14 business days, I answered cleanly. Our cloud infrastructure is fully provisioned. We merely require data migration mapping and custom API configurations. Ms. Hallowell extended her hand across the desk without hesitation. Consider the enterprise contract approved, she declared firmly. Forward the formal service level agreements to my legal counsel before 5 o'clock today. I looked at her hand, feeling the monumental magnitude of the moment. Does this decision not require full board approval? I asked. Miss Hallowell smiled warmly. Julian, I have spent 25 years in enterprise technology watching exceptional engineers build extraordinary systems while arrogant executives exploit their labor. I am the chief executive officer. I retain final authority over our technology architecture, and I choose to partner with Vortex Systems. We shook hands, and I felt a fundamental realignment of power. Nexus Global represented 40% of Apex's total enterprise revenue. When Brantley realized his primary revenue source had migrated to my firm, the consequences would be catastrophic for his company. When I returned to Apex that afternoon, Brantley was waiting near my desk with folded arms and a grim expression. Did your medical appointment extend longer than anticipated? He asked mockingly. Heavy traffic on the freeway. I answered neutrally, initializing my terminal. A peculiar development occurred today, he continued, leaning heavily against my desk. I contacted Nexus Global regarding their contract renewal, and Miss Hallowell's office indicated she was engaged in a private strategic briefing with an independent software vendor. His eyes locked onto mine with intense suspicion. You would not happen to possess information regarding that vendor, would you? I met his gaze without flinching. I am not privy to Executive Officer Hallowell's private calendar. He studied me intensely for a long moment before pushing off the desk. Just remember this, Julian. Every piece of code you engineered while under our employment remains the exclusive intellectual property of Apex Solutions. Every single line. And I will be damned before I allow a community college-educated technician to walk away with my enterprise assets. I waited until he had walked halfway across the open bullpen before responding. Actually, I graduated summa cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering, I stated clearly. The academic record is on file in my employee personnel folder, which you evidently never examined. His shoulders rigidified, but he continued walking toward his office without turning around. The next morning, I arrived at Apex to discover private security personnel stationed at the main entrance doors. Malcolm, a veteran database administrator who had always treated me with kindness, was being escorted out of the building, his decade of personal items packed into a cardboard box. What is occurring? I asked an HR representative hurrying down the hallway with armfuls of folders. Corporate restructuring, she murmured nervously, avoiding my eyes. Brantley will address the remaining staff at 10 o'clock. By 9:45, 3 additional senior engineers had been escorted from the premises. At 10 sharp, Brantley emerged alongside 2 corporate attorneys. As you are aware, Apex is executing necessary structural realignments to maintain market competitiveness, he announced mechanically. Unfortunately, this requires the immediate elimination of positions that no longer align with our strategic trajectory. He read 10 names from a paper list. Security guards immediately stepped toward those individuals. My name was omitted from the list. Brantley was systematically purging potential internal allies before attempting to isolate me through court action. At 1:30 that afternoon, my mobile phone rang. It was Toby's school nurse informing me that Toby had experienced an acute allergic reaction during lunch. His condition was stabilized, but he required my immediate presence. I gathered my personal belongings and headed for the exit, encountering Brantley near the elevators. Where do you think you are going? He demanded aggressively. We are navigating an operational crisis, and you are abandoning your post. My son requires medical attention, I stated firmly. Step aside. Excuse me? He blinked in disbelief. My son needs his father. Move out of my way now. Something in my eyes must have communicated absolute resolve because he stepped backward. Do not bother returning, he shouted as the elevator doors closed. I picked up Toby, ensured his health was fully restored, and spent the evening finalizing contracts with Nexus Global while consulting with Gordon Barrett. The following morning, Apex formally filed a lawsuit against me in federal court, alleging theft of trade secrets, breach of duty, and tortious interference, while seeking an immediate emergency injunction to freeze Vortex Systems operations. Brantley believed he could crush me through expensive litigation. He was wrong. Mr. Barrett immediately filed our legal response and counterclaims. under Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 106, and established federal shop right doctrine, software engineered entirely during off hours on personal hardware, without utilizing proprietary employer code or trade secrets, belongs exclusively to the independent creator. Furthermore, we presented documented proof that Apex possessed zero market equivalent to Ethers. We also initiated counterclaims under the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, Title 29 of the United States Code, Section 2101, for Apex's illegal mass termination of veteran workers without mandatory 60-day notice, alongside claims for fraudulent misrepresentation regarding client billing versus developer pay allocations. The legal tide turned into a massive tidal wave. Within 2 weeks, 3 additional enterprise clients canceled their contracts with Apex and signed long-term service agreements with Vortex Systems. Mainstream technology publications caught wind of the story, publishing a major investigative piece titled, "Underpaid Architect Charged at $12 an Hour Builds $90 Million Competitor at Night." The national press highlighted Brantley's internal emails dismissing me as an older worker, without leverage, sparking widespread industry outrage over corporate exploitation of senior technical talent. Apex's board of directors convened an emergency meeting. Facing the total loss of their client base, severe regulatory scrutiny under federal labor laws, and unwinnable litigation, the board officially terminated Brantley Prescott for gross managerial misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty. Apex's corporate legal team approached Mr. Barrett, proposing an immediate full settlement. Their terms included complete dismissal of all claims against me with prejudice, a formal public retraction of all defamatory statements, and a substantial monetary settlement of $2,500,000 in damages. I agreed to the settlement upon one non-negotiable condition. Apex was required to allocate $1 million of that settlement toward full back pay restitution for all underpaid technical staff and executed a binding policy of transparent salary bands. Today, Vortex Systems employs over 45 talented professionals, operating from a state-of-the-art facility complete with on-site medical care where Toby thrives. I paid off all medical debts, established a permanent educational trust for my son, and built a corporate culture rooted in equity, dignity, and respect. Remember this truth: your professional worth is never defined by what an arrogant employer chooses to pay you. It resides in your ability to innovate, solve complex challenges, and build solutions that command respect.